Live.
Hello and welcome to the Weekly Word. Today is Thursday, September 5th. I can't believe it. I'm Morgan West.
I can't believe you got it right.
I know.
And I'm Rich Parla, welcoming our very special guest, Brett Lutz, a.k.a. Wayne Bretsky.
Yeah.
Brett,
Hello,
tell our
everybody.
viewers a little bit about yourself. Sorry, I always step on the hello.
I am an all-around, nerd.
Yeah.
I'm a father, a husband. I am a DM for a podcast that'll be hopefully released in the beginning of the year, called The Story of Eston. But just all-around nerd. I don't know. That's the best introduction I have for myself.
Don't worry, Brett. You're doing better than me. So
You're appealing to our entire audience. So
Yes.
I'm pretty excited about that podcast myself for many reasons.
Why are you excited?
Yeah. She gets a little insider info knowing Tara. So.
Yeah.
And she's one of my players.
I'm not going to share.
Let me apologize to everybody then. No, I'm only kidding.
I'm not going to share any
Is Tara
details
on?
that I know.
She is on.
But I'm pretty excited about it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it too. The last episode that we recorded on Monday ended with a big doozy, and then I just realized when I was writing stuff earlier today that I forgot like a small important detail that I didn't tell them while we were recording.
Uh-oh.
So I ended up texting everybody, and everybody was like, "What? Can I swear?"
Yeah.
Okay.
You can swear.
Like, what the fuck? How could you it was already a confusing moment, and now you add into this more slightly confusing element even more, and we have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing my job then.
That's super exciting. Well, we're talking about a lot of interesting topics tonight.
You lie.
No.
We don't talk about anything interesting ever.
Yes, we do. Shut your mouth. We are
Salute. Hey, Donnie. Galvini here. So
we're talking about monstrous worlds. We're obviously going to do our classic D&D tip. Whose line is it anyway? A sushi roll review, and following it up as we always do with quick notes and the wrap up. So without further ado, how about we move into our first topic? Let's do it.
Further ado, monstrous worlds.
Yes.
I always feel this is directly from Brett, right?
Brett.
I
yeah.
always feel like people stick to what the monster manual says a creature or race can be or do, and are afraid to go outside the boundaries of that. But also having it make sense in the world you are building. I want to talk about world building and how it's okay to think outside the box in terms of using creatures in different ways, other than what it says in the monster manual and such. I've done that quite a bit. In the story of Eston.
Yes.
I apologize.
Yes.
Eston.
I put the T before the S by accident.
So kick us off, Brett. Tell us how this topic kind of came to you, and how you feel in terms of what people generally do with the monster manual stats.
Yeah. So my biggest thing I wanted to do with this podcast in general was kind of break what you normally see or hear in D&D podcast. So I wanted to take away some of the common tropes that you hear and have in people's worlds and stuff like that. So one of the very first things I did was I limited what races are available to play in my world.
Okay.
So the only races that are available in my world that I created are humans, elves, half-elves, tieflings, and dragonborns. So no dwarfs, gnomes, halflings, and any of the other races that they've come out with Volosky's the Monsters.
Right, Loxodons, all that.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I did this is I always feel like people kind of go into that tropiness of, oh, I'm going to make this, drunk dwarf fighter that is drinking all the time, wants to fight, or I'm gonna make this sneaky little halfling gnome that just sneaks around and steals everybody's shit. And I kind of wanted to break away from that, and it also lets me tell a more concise story, and I don't have to worry about like, oh, so where did the halflings come from? Where did the dwarves come from? Where did the gnomes come from?
Yes, I vibe with that so much, because like when I'm populating like cities in the world I've built, I struggle so much. I'm like, representation is important, but also how did they get here? You know, like.
Yeah, and it's a big part of like when you're building a world, and by limiting that, it gives you that freedom to kind of focus more on what you have available in it. And then another thing I did with with the races that I have, I churned the Dragonborns into kind of a more nomadic kind of tribe system.
Okay.
Similar to the like the Huns from China, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then with the Tieflings, instead of making them this, everybody's like, oh, they don't like Tieflings, like they're kind of like the fringes of society, the evil type of thing. No, the Tieflings in my world are this giant island nation that is an absolute naval power.
That's cool.
They control the seas. They're pirates. They're just all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to break these tropes. And when I thought of that idea, I was like, this is amazing. Like having these tieflings, big, huge ships, and just like, we need, big naval battles, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yep. So do all tieflings in your world like have like, I don't know, marine vehicle proficiencies? Like, do they all know how to sail? Like, is that something that they would have learned culturally, like as children, or?
Yeah. So in a way, so a perfect example. So the way I have my world set up is there's 12 houses that kind of run the show, similar to that of Game of Thrones. Because I mean, what would a D&D world be if you didn't pick different pieces from other pop culture stuff? And so there's
exactly
so there's 3 main houses that run Sanctum Atoll, which is this Tiefling island nation.
Okay.
And 2 of them are your bigger naval powers. And while everybody kind of has that familiarity with them, there is one house in particular that's much more of the, for lack of a better, I guess, description, think of Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. So they kind of run they have the breweries that they run that are on Sanctum Atoll. They kind of have the vices that people can get to. So whether it be drugs in the world, bathhouses, that sort of stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
But if they were to need to, they would absolutely know how to sail a ship if it came down to it.
Okay.
So one of my favorite tacts, which is what I did last night in my Wednesday campaign, is I put away the monster manual. Actually, I put away all the books.
Yep.
And I just ran it. And if I needed something, I pulled it up and I did what I needed to do with it.
Okay.
And I do that a lot. I mean, one of the PCs decided he wanted to jump into an underground fighting pit.
Cool. As one does.
As one does.
Like that's a thing that occurs more often than one might expect.
So he did. He won, and then he wound up sitting with all the participants for that night.
Sweet.
And one of them was a drunk elf that kept talking to everybody. Okay. Every time somebody would come up, he would start talking to them and pointing at them, and it was pretty fun. But putting away the monster manual, not having that as a crutch to say, this is their hit points, this is their AC. Just go with it. What do you need? At the time?
I love that. I mean, I use the monster manuals. How I use them is mainly for, like, that's one of the first things I always look at when I'm either designing combat or designing encounters, is like, what do I want to use?
Right.
Okay.
So I'll page through, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, let's say a dragon, for instance. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I want to use a dragon in this instant. But how can I make it different from what, this red dragon is guarding a hoard of gold.
Right.
Like, yeah, everybody does that. So what do I do? What can I do that's different? So part of the history of Eston was the Dragon Wars. And essentially what it was when the dragons were created, I used red, green, and white were the first 3, and then the red and green created the gold and silver dragon, and the white dragon created the black dragon. And they literally worked together to have this, and they control different parts of the lands of Eston, and basically they work together in absolute tyranny over the lands.
Okay,
And
cool.
and you always see like dragons are solitary creatures and they don't like each other and they're in constant competition.
Right.
But
okay.
what happens when those dragons join forces?
They have tea. Just like everybody else would. They become civilized.
They have tea, and then they figure out how they're just going to dominate the world.
Mm-hmm.
However, they have biscotti and tea.
Oh, biscotti.
Yes.
Absolutely.
How fancy.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. That's what happens.
Yeah. Another kind of tropiness that I took away was I created a sub-race of elves known as city elves. And the city elves...
They're the worst.
City elves they kind of have the same, like dexterity-wise and all that kind of stuff as normal elves. My city elves in this world kind of take the place of the dwarves in the sense of they're miners and craftsmen when it comes to jewels and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And they have beards.
Yeah.
Because that would be awesome.
No but I kind of want to give some elves beards now because I love that look. Now that I'm picturing it, so thank you for that. But they don't have that longer lifespan and they don't have that immortality effect that most elves have.
Oh, interesting.
And the way I work that in is because with what they've done and how they've evolved, they've kind of lost that. I always felt like elves' immortality and everything was always connected to nature and the forest and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so by losing that connection to the forest, it's kind of, as they've evolved over the years, is kind of what took away that immortality aspect of it. And don't get me wrong, like I still have your traditional forest elves that fucking been alive forever and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Those are still there because I love elves, so they're always a fun race to be able to play with.
Yeah.
I do have to say there's one monster that I don't. There's one monster, really not monster, but I don't change them. I don't change them. I do add in variations, but I don't change them because I just love the lore.
Okay, so what is it?
It's Drow.
Okay.
I don't change dark elves. I don't. I love I love the whole house competition. I love the whole thing outside the novels that we've read and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't change them because I feel that it adds a political side. And by the way, I'm still dying for a group that I run for to turn around and go, you know what? We want to we'd like to do an Underdark campaign. No one goes there with me, but I'm waiting for it because I crave it. I crave running something like that. So we'll see. Maybe in a stream down the road.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So for me, Tara mentioned it earlier. I like to go through like the monster manual and get inspiration for crafting like more customized like environment specific creatures. So in my all girl group, we're going on a caravan escort across a desert. So instead of having, an awakened tree or an awakened shrub, I made an awakened cactus, which they've encountered, which does piercing as well as bludgeoning damage. And poor Tara...
Would you call it prickly damage?
Yes.
Yes.
That's so good.
I love that.
And poor Tara, our monk, was just like, I can't do anything. Like she could bash it with her quarterstaff, but she couldn't get up close and personal like she might have wanted to.
When you cut them, does it squirt out water?
Nasty, painful. I think it did. Well, no, they haven't. I'm not going to go any farther with that answer.
Okay. Fair enough. So let me jump over to a couple of the comments.
Yeah.
Just so we can address them. AJ Hewsett, if I said that wrong, blame Morgan. Flexibility.
Okay.
No, Captain Morgan, right? No. Flexibility is definitely the key in D&D. Ask Brett about getting 0 combat XP for refusing to pick a side in a boss fight encounter with knights and a water element. Ha ha. Interesting.
So AJ, that's a buddy of mine. And he's actually the one that introduced me to D&D some 12 years ago.
AJ, nice on ya.
Yeah, he's my boyfriend. That's basically what it is.
I knew it. I knew there was something going on there.
He was running a game for us, and actually, I think it was when. Correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, in the comics, but I think it was when I was doing my first D&D podcast, and he was actually our DM for it, and I was a player, and we came across this like water elemental, and essentially came down to we either had to help the water elemental fight these knights or help the knights fight the water elemental. And all three of us decided to just be like, nope, we're going to see how this turns out. And we just kind of stood there and literally did nothing as these two groups were going at it.
Oh, man.
And he was baffled by our decisions to just literally not do anything. He's like, you guys are just not going to do anything? And we're like, yep, that's exactly it. We're just not going to do anything.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. He
That's
throws that in
wild.
my face all the time. All the time.
That's crazy. That would be like, I would not be able to handle that as a DM. I'd be like, okay, well, I roll initiative.
Hey, I gave a bunch of hooks to the players last night, and there wasn't one, other than the pit fight, there was no combat. They just played. Most of the group went and they were watching and betting on the fighting, and then there was the counter and everything there. And the rogue decided he was going to go rob houses.
Nice.
Classic rogue.
Yeah,
Classic
so
rogue.
that's what he was doing. He was a halfling rogue, and he decided he met with one of his contacts, got a couple of jobs, and he was taking them on while everybody else was fighting.
That's cool.
See, you proved my point about tropes right there. halfling rogue that steals shit all the time.
That's what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do. I wasn't taking it from him. I didn't lead them. I said, "What do you guys want to do?" And this is what they decided they were going to do.
No, I love it's when I first started playing D&D for the longest time. It was always combat focused, so combat all the time, and it's helped me immensely develop this I like to have fun in combat, and I don't want it to just be there's a goblin here, an orc here, and the guy here, go here and here and fight them, and combat's done. So I always try to improvise and bring in something super fun and unexpected into it. But it wasn't until around last year when I got my first real taste of role playing in the game, and it's a Sunday night game I play in, and we usually play around 3-4 hours, and there's been times where the entire 3-4 hours it's just me and the three other players role playing, and our DM just kind of sitting back answering questions.
Yeah, that's awesome.
NPCs, but it's so fun because it's something I've never experienced before in D&D, because I've been playing for 12 years.
Yeah.
And to finally get that role-playing part of tabletop RPGs was just so refreshing, and it's helped me immensely in creating a world and building a world and just DMing in general. Because the one thing I've gotten really good at is being able to bullshit my way through anything that I haven't planned.
Oh, you work in corporate America too?
Yeah.
Well, that comment kind of leads us right into the next topic that we have, which is a D&D tip. How you had said it took you, 12 years before you got to, play in a game that was role-play heavy. And the tip is always be learning. There are many crusty, old, experienced DMs that badly need to change their game. And that reminds me of that because, when you hear, or imagine, quintessential old-school D&D, you're imagining a combat, a big, serious, challenging fight. And I like that, you're finally getting an opportunity to play in more role-play heavy games, because those are some of my favorite games.
Yeah, and it goes both ways, right? It's D&D and roleplay, and it's great and it's essential, but it's Dungeons and Dragons, and it is a game, right? I mean, the first name in it is Dungeons, so there's something to be said about that. Roleplay is definitely part of it, but getting jobs and doing things is also the other part of it. There's not a novel out there that doesn't encompass some part of an adventure at some point. It isn't all role playing. And people thrive, combat. So there's got to be a balance, right?
Well,
and
for every table, that's a thing. Some people want a role play heavy campaign. Some people want a combat heavy campaign where they're not happy if they don't have mostly combat over the course of the night. And I get that. Or one substantial combat. But it's funny because for me, and I think I've said it a few times now, combat can get very dice roll heavy and strategic, where people kind of forget to have like their characters are in a moment, you know, and people start to focus on, well, how do I best set myself up to deal more damage or get myself to safety without actually like being there in the moment role playing through a combat, which is something that you really can do.
So there's you said something there. You want players to be smarter. You do want them to role play through encounters sometimes instead of relying on combat. But you don't want to take the combat away. I'll tell you, as a DM, running, I would rather the players role play through, like, I would rather prepare a combat encounter that they can work through, and where they don't have to fight, than prepare 100% role play. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with role play, but but as a DM, preparing a role play campaign or role play only campaign is not only difficult, but not as intriguing, not as fun. I guess it's one of the reasons why I stopped playing the whole vampire and mage type of games.
It's interesting.
I also think
your take, Brett?
combat adds a sense of both excitement and intensity to a situation, because if it's you got your role playing, you get into combat can go south real fast if the dice aren't in your favor. So that definitely you always need a healthy mix of it. But a way that I've figured out to, if somebody does want more of a role play heavy thing, is to be able to still incorporate dice rolls by adding in not necessarily events, but like I had one thing where my players had to try to figure out how these giants were getting into the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through they weren't coming in through the gates. People weren't seeing them; they were just appearing. So it was a lot of investigating and talking to people, and there'd be small skirmishes where they would have to roll, but it wouldn't be like a full fight, and you still get that excitement aspect of it. But I will agree though that you definitely do need, as long as combat can take sometimes, especially if you have a lot of people. I mean, what's the age-old saying is a 2-day journey in D&D takes 2 minutes, and a 2-minute round or 2-minute combat takes 2 hours. But you definitely need a healthy mix, because especially depending on your players, because I mean, I've had DM for people that not everybody likes the role playing, and not everybody likes to be combat heavy. So a good healthy mix of those, I think, is essential to D&D.
I agree. Hey, you actually said something, but more to the topic about always be learning. It's more. It's not just D&D. Don't learn just from your experiences. I'll give you an example. In Shadowrun, I run Shadowrun, and I'm a big fan of that. Just because you miss, or just because you have a glitch, they call them glitches, right? You can still succeed, but have a glitch. So you can succeed and have something go wrong. So even though, like yesterday when the rogue was trying to break into the window, now he failed his pick locks. He failed it. But I didn't really think that it was that difficult. What I wanted him to do, the reason why I wanted to roll is because if he succeeded, it would have opened silently. If not, he still got it open. It just made a lot of noise. And it caused a different set of events to cascade into motion.
Right.
And so that's stuff you learn from. You don't always learn from D&D itself. If you follow D&D directly, you're not going to learn what other systems do. So you got to pick up your experience from everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah, I've never gotten to play Shadowrun, but I've wanted to so bad. It sounds so much fun, and some of the stuff that my friend AJ has told me about, because he's gotten to play it, I'm just like, I want to play it so bad. Well, it sounds so amazing.
I will be running one-offs over the next couple of months. Just like a game here, a game there.
I will be in combat. Or combat. I will be in contact.
I will fight you.
I will be in combat.
I will fight you. We had a lot of fun. I picked up 6th edition. It's not the greatest system in the world. I mean, the way it went, but I do enjoy I like the setting, right? And I love the high action aspect of it. So it's pretty good.
The sci-fi and the fantasy setting melds like so cool together that I'm just like, I wanna be like, he made like a pixie necromancer one time, and I'm like, I want to make a pixie necromancer. Like, come on, why can't I do this?
That would work. I like that. Right? I could deal with that. I could deal with a pixie necromancer. That'd be cool. undead pixies at your disposal.
Oh my god.
I think one aspect of though to the always be learning thing, and I learned this, is that to try to never say no when you're DMing.
Yeah.
Because even if it sounds in the way, since we're focusing on Dungeons and Dragons, the way Dungeons and Dragons set up with your skills, I feel like there's always a way you can figure out a way to do something with the rolls for something that somebody wants to accomplish.
Yes.
And as a DM, you want people to have fun. So if somebody's like, I want to, like, again, always goes back to my buddy AJ, because, like I said, he's my D&D inspiration. He showed me everything. There was one time I was playing, this was back in 3.5, using a supplement book called Mercenaries, where I made a tattoo mage. And he let me, I had spider climb tattoos, he let me spider climb up a wall as I was reading a scroll of jump off the wall and land on the dragon's head to punch it in the face. And he's like, all right, well, this is what you need to do, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, if this is what you want to do. And I'm like, this is absolutely what I want to do. Like, yes, this is what we're doing. And, I succeeded and got to punch a dragon directly in the face.
That's always pretty cool.
Yeah, not saying that was a big part. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I've done that in so many different games that I've been running. I was running one where my players were on this weird, like, sunken island in the middle of the ocean. And it's kind of like, picture like the bayou in Louisiana, how you have like the trees growing out of the water.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that, and it was about, I think it was like 4 feet under the water, and all these trees coming out. And so they were on their little rowboat going or whatever, and the boat started getting attacked from all sides, and they couldn't figure it out, and they were getting attacked by the Murrows. But they were going so fast under the water they couldn't see it, and it was kind of like a guerrilla tactic. So they could hit the boat with the spear, swim off really fast, and I think I had a gnome and a halfling, and they were both like, well, I can't go in the water because I'm going to drown. I literally can't touch the water and touch the ground and be above water. And so they climbed into the tree, and they're like, well, what are we going to do with our boat? Because we need our boat still. Wow. So one of our players managed to have like a winch and pulley set. So like, all right, we're going to tie up the boat, pulley it up, and so like we had 4 people sitting in this tree pulling up this boat because they're scared of like this crazy thing in the water that keeps attacking them and they can't figure it out. And they're trying to like patch the boat in the tree, they're getting stuff thrown at them while they're in the tree, and it was just this craziness of events happening.
That's fun.
Lightning bolt.
Yeah, right? Yeah, just lightning bolt in the water.
I mean, come on. What are we talking about here?
I don't think we had any magic users in that, now that I think about it. Wow. I think it was a fighter, a ranger, and 2 rogues.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's a fun party.
Yeah.
Wow. So that brings us to whose lol line is it anyway?
Yeah. Pardon the error. Pardon the error there. So it is supposed to be, whose line is it anyway? So
Just read it.
For our audience, for the past 2 weeks in a row, I've happened to land on the topic that our guest wanted to talk about, which is super awesome, and I hope I get to do it next week also. But it did leave me at like 3 this afternoon wondering what topic I would like to discuss. So I landed on whose line is it anyway. So D&D is assumed, mostly incorrectly, to be a game that's run by a DM and played by the players, and the 2 groups are completely separate in their roles, their responsibilities, and what they do. But the game can't rest solely on the GM's shoulders. So how can you divvy up responsibilities and tasks, things to remember, that it makes it either more fair for everyone involved in the game, or just easier for the GM, so that, the GM doesn't face GM burnout and the players don't feel like they are not one with the GM. So that's what I want to talk about today.
I think it depends on the group, right? I think to give an example, with the new Wednesday group, we have New Blood, and some of the New Blood has never played D&D before.
Cool.
So it's their first time, and so she contributes what she can, but doesn't necessarily have to take on more. But I do agree that the players. So last night, there was like, all right, so I go to the tavern. Is there a tavern down the block? Yeah, there's a tavern down the block. What is it called? And I just started asking the players, well, what is it called? Okay, I talked to is the owner there? Yeah, he's there or she's there. What's her name?
Right.
Or his name? And so I got information and I was able to jot down the notes.
That's cool.
So as they were creating things, it was like, yeah, I just had a one of the characters was like, well, I was in all these mercenary groups. Oh, really? What are they called? Right? And so I agree. I think it's a lot more now than you used to have to do. In the past, especially in 3.5, players had so much just worrying about how their character progressed with all the supplements and all the add-ons that the DM could do nothing more than concentrate on just the game itself. And so I think that's evolved, and I think 5e has opened it up and given a lot of suggestions on how the players can be involved.
Now,
it's more collaborative.
Right. So for the way that you played last night, where you were asking for tavern names or NPC names, were you getting those from people who had established backstories that existed in this place?
Nope.
Or is it just arbitrary players provide?
They were just they did not have established backstories. They were coming up with stuff on the spot, and when they did, I jotted it down. And they had a great time doing it.
That's cool.
Once in a while I would throw in something. If I had an idea, I was like, oh, yeah, that's called.
Yeah.
And we worked together, and it was a lot more collaborative than even we've done in some of our other, some of our other games. But this was very collaborative, and it was a good testing ground for that type of interaction.
Cool. Brett, how about you? How do you guys share the burden?
So I've never even thought about that with like getting the players involved. Like, oh, what should this be called? And that's a great tip, and I'm gonna steal that.
It's all yours, buddy.
Yeah, but I think especially so with the way I DM, I have a lot of my surroundings and my locations and all that like really mapped out, and everything has a name and this, that, and the other, and I can usually come up with names pretty quick on the spot. But my biggest thing is when I go into combat. That's when I try to let players really shine in combat. One, because the combat situations I make I try to always make them interesting, and throw some sort of barrier other than the opponents that they're fighting. But I try to, I'll be like, all right, roll for your attack. They say, okay, I rolled a 19. Does that hit? I'm like, yeah. How do you want to do this? So I let them.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
How they're going to attack this. So it's like, oh, I come in with a downward slash and try to get it across the chest, and then I take that and I give them the finished picture, the finished painted picture for them.
Right.
So they give me what they want to do, and then I add more to it. It's like, oh, okay, so you like, for example, so Tara, she's a monk in my game, and she was, throwing fists and punching people. I'm like, okay, so how do you run up to this thing? How do you want to do it? And she's like, okay, I just, 2 fists and I come down straight down. I'm like, yeah, perfect. So you run up to this thing and it just fucked with your mind, and you run up, and as you're running up, you jump up in the air and do that flying like downward fist right across this thing's face, and it jerks down, and you come back up with like a knee right into his chest, and you kind of give that picture of what they wanted to do.
Right.
Yes.
And then it's always fun to also, when something dies, be like, all right, how do you want to kill this thing?
Right.
Like, give me your best description of how you want to kill this thing.
Yeah.
So Morgan's familiar with that.
And I love that so much, because it's some of the things people come up with are super fun. And I mean, even if it's something like, oh, I just chop its head off. Like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you come up and you slash this thing right across, and just the cleanest cut you've ever seen right across this thing's neck, and it slides. Body slides one way, its head slides the other way.
Sweet.
But it's always, for me, combat is as boring as it can be. Sometimes you got to make it a fun aspect, because I always try to get a healthy mix.
Yeah, you have to keep it interesting.
Yeah,
because inevitably, there is definitely something to be said about crafting the ideal party, but that's not always realistic for us. So like trying to balance everyone's interests is it's like a big part of playing a game. It's a social experience. You know, you're trying to make it good for everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've also been able to whenever I DM, I always tell people, I'm like, you don't need to worry about party balance, because if I make an encounter too powerful and I realize that in mid combat, I have no problems nerfing it down, because I want them to have fun. So it's like, if you want to make a party of all bards, absolutely, we can figure this out. I'll make some awesome combat for 4 bards. Yeah.
Like you should your players should always feel like they can play what they want to play. They shouldn't feel like they need to well, what is the party lacking? Like, don't forget about that. Like, play where you want to play.
Unless it's session 0, that's what you decide. That's what they decided on Wednesday. They wanted to build a party. They didn't want to build individuals. Right. And there's a difference there, right? You know, if you can go either way on that one. There is something to be said about a party, you know.
Well, I mean, it can be a party that's not perfectly balanced, like how you had said. I think it was you. You said you didn't.
I say a lot of things.
You didn't want strategizing, right? Which is why you don't use maps and minis and things like that. You don't want people to get too hung up.
I don't want them to get hung up on
and this and that. But that's kind of like the same theory when you're thinking about it. Like that's the same reason people come up with characters that fit around other people's skill sets.
No, you're right.
You know,
you're right. I don't want somebody to limit themselves.
Yeah.
And it turns out that they didn't really limit themselves this way. They did build a party that worked together.
Yeah.
I steal the Fiasco bond system a lot, which is how do you know the person to your left? And that works.
Cool.
That's pretty cool. It works. It works really well. There was something else I was going to say, and it completely jumped out of my mind. So
moving back to the topic, which was like sharing responsibilities, like it can be as simple as having someone take control of the loot that people hold on to, like the whole party. Like instead of having to divvy up the gold you find from pockets, like every single time somebody like goes through pockets or loots a corpse after combat, like leave it to one person to figure it out, to track it, to see where the party's at. And it's easier than a bunch of people being like, oh, what did we get? Like, I don't remember. I don't think I wrote it down 2 weeks ago. Like,
until that person doesn't show
divvying up. Well, that's another benefit for shared documents, you know, things like being able to go to a Google Docs page with the party information.
No, I understand. I understand. I get it. But that's what I remember. So I used to run... my friend George created an RPG called The Secret Fire, and I ran it for him. The first time I ever ran it he was literally typing up the chapters and emailing them to me the night before I was running the first game at a convention for him. And one of the mechanics he had was called an energy point system, so to speak. And what you would do, character point, energy, it was energy point, right? So for particularly good role playing, describing what you're doing, furthering the plot, you can award energy points. Now, in order for them to use it, which would give them advantage or would give them extra damage or something like that, they had to describe exactly what they were doing to earn it. Well, okay, that's great. You got extra damage, but how did you do it? And, you know, would say, well, I put my foot up on the wall and I used that as leverage to, you know, add an extra thrust or something to that effect.
I like that.
And you've seen me with you guys, how if you guys don't describe it, I will. So it gives a little bit more detail or imagery. And then everything that died would bleed all over you.
That's just what happens to Nepeta.
Right. That was her bad luck.
Yeah.
Especially if it was gross.
Iker. Me and Iker go way back. But
anyway. But yeah, that's what I remembered. It was more pertinent earlier in the conversation than it was at the end.
All right. Well, I think we've covered quite a lot about sharing responsibility.
I do. I agree. We never mentioned the initiative. Taking that off the DM's plate is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I like that.
Also, and this is just to round it out, because this is actually why I thought about it. I had recently, I'm reading a book, which I won't talk about in my watching, reading, listening to section, but I'm reading a book called Your Best Game Ever. No, I'm really reading it. No.
No one believes you.
And in the book, they talk about how players shouldn't leave it to the DM to reach out to problem players. And that just like vibed with me so intently. Like it's not the DM's responsibility to every single time address a problem with a player. Like, and we take advantage. I'm saying this as a player, I've taken advantage of pushing the responsibility off my own plate and saying, oh, it's the DM's responsibility to tell this person that, you know, we don't like what they're doing at the table. And it's not fair. And like reading it on a page for the first time was like, oh, why have I been doing that? You know, like, because it really is completely unrealistic as to an unreasonable. And it just never crossed my mind before. Like, if you've got a problem, it should be dealt with either by a designated person or the group as a whole, but it certainly shouldn't be the DM's responsibility every single time.
You know, there's we got some noise going on.
Yeah,
there.
I don't know what's happening.
Brett, do you have us on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably what it is.
Oh no, I don't know. You guys were kind of chopping up a little bit, but you're not anymore.
Okay. So it's interesting because that's a double-edged sword. Players, DMs, to be a DM, there's levels of skills that people adapt. Not new DMs. New DMs are relatively novice, but I think experienced or long-term DMs often develop the same skills as managers do in dealing with people, you know, with that, and players usually feel comfortable. Like, so I get what you're saying. It's probably not the DM's responsibility. It should be the group's responsibility.
Right.
But like me as a DM, just because of my background and my career, I'm better equipped to deal with people. That like to deal with that type of stuff and have people come to me and say, you know what, you're an issue. You need to deal with it.
I think that might stand true for you, but it doesn't necessarily stand.
No,
true
you're
for
right.
every
That's why I'm saying.
DM,
No,
so.
You're right. It's interesting to hear it that way because I don't think of it that way because you know, just not me. But,
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts, Brett?
I think a big part of it for me is I'm a firm believer in D&D is a group effort, and as soon as one person starts ruining the fun for everybody, whether it be because they're being greedy in game or just being a general douche, especially if it's a group of adults, like you're adults, say something.
You'd like to think that.
Yeah, you'd like to think that, but I'm a very firm believer in, this is we're taking 3 hours out of our day to have fun.
Yeah.
With friends.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
okay, I can understand if, this is how your character is, but you also got to take into consideration the other players in the game. Like, yes, like if you're a rogue and you're going to steal stuff and you're going to be, chaotic neutral, that's fine. But if you're doing something bad and a player decides to punch your character in the face, you also shouldn't be mad that somebody else's character punched your character in the face because you're ruining the fun for everybody else.
That's right.
Like, we don't want to go fight the town guard because you're going to try to steal something if you get caught. Well, I'm going to do it anyways. Okay, well then, DM, I attack this player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's and it comes down to if somebody's being like that, step up and say something. Don't go to your DM like you're a child in school. Be like, teacher, he's doing something I don't like.
Yes.
Be like, either private message them or pull them aside after you guys are done for the session. Be like, hey, you're kind of ruining the fun for everybody with your characters' antics and stuff like that. Maybe dial it back a little bit, figure out a different angle, like something along those lines. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, Don said echoed my statements. Is everyone has different skill sets, and some are better dealing with conflict than others, and that's absolutely correct. So, like you were saying, Morgan, in my case, I'm really okay with it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have a problem.
Right.
I'm relatively blunt sometimes, and I can deal with it. But that's what I do every day. You know, I run an agile team, and I manage other people, and they come to me when there's a problem with the team, and I'm expected to deal with it. You know, other managers, if something's going on with my team, they'll come to me, and I have to deal with it. So I don't think about it, but it's very, very true. I've seen a lot now, being on Twitter as much as I am. I see a lot of people DMing for the very first time, and you understand they haven't had time to develop those skills, and they're not that person. You know, our next week's guest, Baby GM, I think, Baby DM, I think his DM is relatively new at DMing, and
she's so sweet.
Yeah, isn't
I've
she?
talked to her a bunch. She's so sweet.
She is awesome. I'm so happy she agreed to come on the show. She was saying it's going to be 3 a.m. for her.
Yeah, she's all the way out in Germany.
I know, and
I've been trying to figure out how to get her in a game.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, I live out in Germany." I'm like, "This because I work second shift, so I get home at like almost midnight." And
okay.
I was like, "Well, what time is it right now for you?" She's like, it's like 7 a.m. I'm like, "Okay, so we're like 7-8 hour difference." I'm like, "Oh, that's perfect. Like you can play at like 6 o'clock at night, and we'll play at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
That works. If that works for you, that works for us perfectly fine. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that gives us the entire rest of the day to do stuff, and you go to sleep right after."
I'd love to get her in a game like on a Sunday morning, because I used to run a Sunday game, and I'm not going to do it every week, but you know, every once in a while we do a one-off.
Yeah.
But definitely invite her into something like that.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to her about the language differences because she plays both languages.
Yeah.
So I want to understand the difficulty that she has. She was complaining. It wasn't too long ago, about 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. She had made a tweet that she joined a game, and she was having issues with everybody else talking about her accent, and that stuff like that bothers me. You know, I want to understand, you know, what the problem is with that type of stuff, and how does she deal with it?
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I remember what tweet you're talking about, and yeah, I was kind of the same way. I'm like, who are these terrible people you're playing with?
Yeah.
Like, I know plenty of people that'll absolutely help you learn English better and work on your English and work with you through D&D so we can better understand each other.
Of course.
Don't even worry about that. Because, I mean, the tabletop community is, as a whole, I mean, every community has, like, the cesspool of, like, people that just need to get out of the community. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But for the majority of it, I mean, it's a very welcoming community, and you can almost always find a game to play somewhere.
Yes.
And that's one thing I love about it. I'm going to start trying to branch out to try to learn other systems and other games because I'm just having so much fun with it, and I haven't had this much fun with it in such a long time. So
yeah, if you ever want to be an elf or a dwarf, let me know. I just found my my basic set. And Morgan has been asking me to write an adventure and play with the same adventure and run it in every edition. And I just unboxed my basic set from some boxes I had in storage, and so I'm thinking about writing it up. So there you get to be a human who can be a rogue, mage, or fighter, or cleric, or you could be an elf, or you could be a dwarf, and that's your race and class.
Wow.
nice.
Well, I can't wait.
That's
I'm down. Yeah,
that's
I'm
fun.
down for that. That's awesome.
But so I'll keep it out there, and we'll do some stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that brings us to
Last section.
what we are.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, damn it, I forgot. All right,
Rushing
take us away.
along.
We got to,
Rushing us along.
Well, because we had
this
a lot of
is
good conversation tonight.
You know, so we
Sorry,
can
I
wrap
talked
this
a
one
lot.
up. No,
No, it's Morgan.
It's always me. So the last section is sushi roll review. So this past Saturday, Rich and I finally sat down and played,
Alex
sat down and played sushi roll together. It's a super adorable dice rolling game by Game Right Games. I enjoyed myself. Did you enjoy yourself?
I did. I actually bought the game originally because every year Game Right Games puts out a new game, and I pick it up for my daughter to play because she loves playing those games, and then she runs them at conventions. You know, she's 9, and she likes running games for people, and like recently, she just had 2 tables full of people that she taught the game to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I did enjoy it.
So it's, as I said, a dice rolling game. You can play 2 to 5 players. It won the Oppenheim Gold Seal Award.
Look at you.
I know I did a little research, you know. So I enjoyed it. It's super cute. The color scheme is adorable. The pieces are fun.
Yeah.
It's very family friendly. But that said, it's also very entertaining to play with just a table of adults.
Yeah, it was like 30 minutes. Each game took about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
One went so quickly, I was like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Aesthetics, I said, were great. The speed was nice and quick.
Yes.
I didn't feel like at any point was I like waiting for something to happen.
Right.
If anything, I felt like the game went a little too fast because we would sit there and be like, wait, is this the last round? Like,
Right.
Are we already on the
Right.
you know?
We started at 8 and we were done for the night at 9:30.
Yeah.
And so next time we'll have to line up 2 games just in case. But just so that people understand, there's another game out there called Sushi Go or Sushi Go Party.
Right.
Right? This is the dice game equivalent to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the card game.
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah, so it's the same
I played
company.
Sushi Go.
Oh, it's the same company.
Okay.
And while that is a little involved, this is a much simpler form of that, but just as fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. So I haven't played Sushi Go, and I haven't played Sushi Go Party either.
Yeah.
So I did go on Board Game Geek and take a look at some reviews for people who have played both. The consensus is pretty much that they enjoyed it as much as the first game, as Sushi Go.
Okay.
And that they didn't feel like any of like the fun was taken out of having a more streamlined game. And one comment that I did see was that they felt like the needless complications that exist are no longer there.
Yes. The only aspect that Sushi Go Party, the only difference, by the way, is the tin you get and the extra pieces. The only difference between those 2 games and Sushi Roll is that in Sushi Go or Sushi Go Party, you get to pick what your menu is beforehand. That's the only difference. You just lose that aspect of it, but I don't think it's such a loss because
some people commented on how that was a significant loss to them because it kind of impacts replayability, right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair call out.
I felt like when we were playing, I understood the game. I had no need to play the game again, you know, having grasped it.
No, you're right. You're right.
Now, that said, if you're playing with kids who want to play a game that they've played over and over and over and over again, this was like an easy, quick, super adorable, fun way to play a game.
So what I found with kids, and Brett, then you can jump in here because this is a more general thing. What I found with kids, that if you have a quick play game and you have 3 or 4 quick play games, it's great. It doesn't matter how many times because you can play Sushi Roll like 2 or 3 times throughout the night, but maybe not in a row. Right? Like Rebecca will come over and we'll play Sushi Roll, and then we'll play Go Nuts for Donuts. And then we'll come back to this, and then we'll play Slamwich. And then we'll come back to Go Nuts for Donuts. And they're so quick that we can play a lot of games quickly. So you can play
So it
them
does
over
feel like refreshing, kind of. Yeah. That makes sense. But I enjoyed it. I thought that the dice, you've got 4 different kinds of dice.
Yes.
You've got 2 different, so you're pretty much rolling a set of random dice that you draw from a dice bag. And you're trying to strategically plan for what dice you might get in the future. While constantly re-rolling those dice. So you need to be mindful what faces appear on certain colored dice, how many of those colored dice exist on the table that perhaps are sitting in front of another player. While trying to better your hand, you're also trying to mess with the other people. Like
I did that more than once to you.
Oh, I was so mad.
What's great is you don't actually show it during the game. No. You don't. You have a very stoic face during the game, and it was so awesome.
Oh, I was like inside. I was like growling furiously.
I almost hoped you would.
Yeah, but
so
yeah.
I shouldn't play this with my wife because we are very competitive.
Oh no, you should definitely. You should then definitely play this with your wife because I mean it's like a really. It's a really silly game to get heatedly competitive about, but also totally appropriate.
Yeah, that's we get when we play games like where we're competing against each other, we get real cutthroat real fast.
Oh yeah. Those feels don't evaporate as soon as the game ends. Like no, yeah, definitely, I've been there. But all right, so that wraps up our topic segment for the show, and now we are going to go to what we're watching, reading, and listening to. So why don't we start off with you, Brett? What are you watching, reading, or listening to?
Right now, I'm re-listening to The Hobbit on audiobook.
No way, I am too.
Are you?
Yeah, but I got some weird made for radio edition, and it's very distracting.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah, I think there's when you look at Audible, there's two different ones. They got the audio drama version and then just the single person reading version.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm re-listening to that because there's a Adventures in Middle Earth, and it's made for 5th edition, and there's some rule changes for it to kind of better supplement it for the Tolkien verse.
Okay.
And me and my wife are kind of working on a Lord of the Rings Tolkien kind of podcast for it. So I kind of want to get reacquainted with his way of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with The Hobbit.
You mean pay by word?
Yeah. And then I'm listening to there's a podcast I absolutely love called Monster Talk. This is called The Science Show about monsters, and they have people come on and they talk about all sorts of different kind of cool stuff, and they take like a scientific approach to it, but it's really informative and really well researched.
What? Say it again.
It's called Monster Talk.
Monster Talk. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, it's super cool. I really like it.
All right, awesome.
And then I'm also listening to the Veturium, The Wanderers.
Me too.
Yep, our friend Robin's D&D Live Play podcast.
Yeah, I'm making progress. When she was on, I had finished episode 1 and was like halfway through episode 2, and now I'm like episode 10. I'm like, okay, what?
Yeah, I'm a couple episodes behind.
Yeah.
The only time I really get a chance to listen to is on my commute to and from work.
Yep, same.
Right now I'm reading, it's a book called Hitler's Monsters.
Okay.
It's all about Hitler and Himmler and the Nazi Party and their fascination with the occult and all that kind of stuff, and how it influenced the Third Reich and all that kind of stuff. And that's one thing that's really always just like really interested me. And just it goes like really in depth about it and talks about before World War II and even after World War II.
Okay, cool.
I remember. Yep, I'm familiar with that. It's from different, but yes.
Yep. It's really interesting so far. As far as playing, I've gotten really hard back into Destiny 2. And it's especially with the cross save feature coming out in October and all that stuff, I'll be able to play it a lot more with different people, because I primarily play on PC.
Okay.
So, but with the cross save feature, I'll also be able to play on Xbox now too. So,
sweet.
Yeah, it'll be
nice.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fun. But yeah, I've dived really hard back into Destiny.
I have. It's been about a year now. Not quite a year. It's been like 9 or 10 months that I haven't played Destiny, and I miss it. I love Destiny's such a great social game.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and I've been having such a blast starting to play it again, and I really missed it. I found a really good Destiny tabletop game that uses the Fate Core system.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. And I've been reading up on that, and I'm actually going to be running a game for 3 of my buddies here soon.
Oh, cool.
With it, so I've been diving really hard into Destiny lore and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to try to run that too.
Cool.
And learn the Fate Core system as well. So.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
How about you? What are you watching, reading, listening to?
I am watching The Dark Crystal right now.
Love it.
I keep forgetting that started.
I am almost done with it.
Whoa, holy moly.
Yeah, I might finish it tonight if I don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
Have you seen that there's a Dark Crystal Twitter account, and they are willing to create your Skeksis name for you if you tell them what your name and profession is?
Nice.
It's so good. I
nice.
spent
I
like
didn't
a
know that.
solid
I'm
2-3 minutes just scrolling through the comments that everyone's names are so great.
That's awesome.
It's a
That's
lot of
really
fun.
awesome. Is it? I've heard nothing but good things from it about it.
It's really so. Okay, so here's the mix. I'll give you. But I won't fully review it. But
Yeah.
here's my mix. I like it. I like the story. I like the way it's evolving. I like that it's more than the 2 hours as the original movie. But here's my biggest problem with it. The revival of the Muppets didn't work.
Okay.
The revival, like every time they try to bring back Muppets, it never really worked. And watching it, I like it. I do because I grew up with it. But I can see a whole generation of audience that might not be into it as much because of they never got into the Muppets when they came back. It was different. They grow up in a world of CGI.
Makes sense.
And animation and computer animation, and this is very, very raw, and there's not as much it's so obvious when a Muppet's trying to drink something and it's not really drinking it.
Right.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
Now I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I would never bump it down from that.
Have you watched it with Rebecca?
No, that's the thing. I
want to know what it's like to watch it with Rebecca and how she feels about it.
She just started the Harry Potter series with me.
Okay.
And she's enjoying that. But I will, now that was before Dark Crystal came out, but I haven't had her with me in a couple of weeks. So I have her with me tomorrow and throughout the weekend. So I'll see if she wants to watch it, and I'll start it over with her, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But she grew up in a world of cartoons and highly animated cartoons.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And she never liked the Muppets. She never got into them. So we'll see how she likes this.
Yeah. Yeah.
She may like it. She may like it just from the story, because the story itself is pretty good. And the fact that they have 10 episodes, I believe, to tell it across is pretty awesome.
Each one an hour long?
Yeah.
An hour-ish?
Cool. Hour and a half, something like that.
Okay.
They're pretty good.
Okay.
They're very good.
Nice.
I have no complaints. Personally, I have no complaints.
Do you want to continue? You want to move forward a little bit? We're getting pretty close to our
done.
pumpkin time.
Yeah, I'm done.
All
right.
Go. So for me, what am I doing? I am reading. I'll talk about what I'm reading. I'm reading A Confederacy of Dunces, which, if you haven't read A Confederacy of Dunces, you must. It's by John Kennedy Toole, about a larger-than-life, pompous ignoramus down in New Orleans that takes place in, I believe, the 60s, and it is so uncomfortable and so clever and so funny. I find myself literally cackling as I'm listening to it. It's so good. So, nice. Confederacy of Dunces. And our next segment, what didn't you say no to?
This
Brett,
one's just for you, Brett.
For you.
Just for me.
Yeah.
I think of a good one. I have a good one that my DM didn't say no for me, if I can use that instead.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so this was actually my very first time playing D&D. And I think it was session 1 even. So we get to a city, and I played. We always kind of, just so people can kind of get down the how dice rolling works and everything like that, we always try to make somebody be like a fighter or a ranger.
Okay.
So I was like, well, yeah, no, I'll make a fighter. I'll make a big dumb dragonborn fighter. My first time ever playing was 4th edition.
Right.
So yeah, I'll make a big dumb fighter, uses a long sword, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we get to these city gates. Yeah, exactly. So we get to the city gates, and the guard was like, we don't allow weapons into the city. So you need to, give us your weapons. We'll put them in a safe spot, and once you leave, we'll give your weapons back. Any weapons or anything like that you purchase inside the city, we'll put with your storage, and when you leave, you get it. And I'm like, no, fuck you. I don't want to give this guy my sword. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go around the corner, and I'm gonna swallow my sword, like straight up, like sword swallowing. And the DM pauses for a good 4 seconds, and he's like, all right, yeah, sure, why not? He's like, roll a Constitution, and I'm like, absolutely, roll. Boom, natural 20, first ever natural 20. And he just pauses for a second. He's like, You know what? All right. So you walk up and your big dumb dragonborn mouth is big enough to where it like conceals this almost the entire sword as you know, your face is now straight up and down.
That's so funny.
To make with the sword, and he doesn't see the sword as you walk in. I'm like, perfect. He's like, well, now what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I didn't think that far ahead. So I think we had a wizard was basically like holding my arm and like guiding me through everything because I couldn't look down.
Right.
That's so good.
And then but it eventually ended with me failing my Constitution check to the sword bumping, like, I guess for lack of a better term, the gag reflex in my Dragonborn to then launching the sword out of my mouth at the same time of activating my Dragon's Breath all over the side of this poor dwarf shop.
That's so funny.
And almost burning it to the ground.
Yeah,
I didn't get arrested though.
Ah.
So that was the
so
plus
it's a
side.
success.
Yeah, exactly. But that was like my first big experience in D&D, and that's like ultimately what made me fall in love with the game.
Really cool. That's awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, quick notes. Let's
rush through them.
Yeah. So, Brett, first off, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast?
You can find me on Twitter at BretskyTM. You can find the podcast Twitter at Story of Eston. Eston is ESTON. Look for the hashtag Story of Eston as well. Me and the players post a lot of GIFs and just updates while we're recording about spoilers without context.
Love it. That's fun.
So it's just a bunch of random GIFs of things that happen in the moment, and we've gotten really good at finding really good, perfect GIFs for everything. So look at that. There's not a huge time frame of when it'll start releasing. There's a lot of post-production work that needs to be done before we release any episodes, and I want to try to get the majority of them done before we actually start releasing them.
Sure.
But as soon as I do, I promise you it'll be every single day posting updates and like, hey, go listen to this. Monday, go listen to this. Tuesday, go listen to this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because I'm extremely proud of the story that I've written and just my players and how they've done everything so far, and we've just been having an absolute blast.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
All right. So,
Let's do it.
as you see, we have added a review section to the show. If you have something you want us to review, drop it in the comments, send us an email at social media at lrhobbies.com.
So, October Faction is a project our friend George Strayton just finished up that will be dropping this month on Netflix. As soon as it comes out, I will be watching the whole thing and letting you guys know what I think, including you, George.
Octocon is going to be on October 19th and 20th. It's a free event that's going to be held at the Bethpage Library.
Long Island Tabletop is getting its own expo at the Cradle of Aviation on Long Island in April 2020. I do have the dates for that, but I will add them next week, and I will start tweeting it out. Our Twitter will be a lot more active in the next month than it ever has been. Keep an eye out for the new Long Island Tabletop Twitch and YouTube channel coming soon. I will be doing several streams on their Twitch and videos on the YouTube, including possibly a morning over coffee thing, which I'm not quite sure what the format's going to be, but it'll be quite fun because it'll be 5 or 6:30 in the morning.
Nice.
Keep an eye out for the new, I just read that.
Yes, you did.
Links for all subjects we covered tonight are in the video description. Be sure to, I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
If you like the topics we discussed tonight, please like the video and hit the subscribe button.
And click the bell.
Yes.
Click it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
The bell.
If you'd like to be a guest on the Weekly Word, DM Rich on Twitter at LRTerrain.
You son of a...
Haha. Got you back.
Or email me directly at rich.parla@lrhobbies, HOBBIES.com. We are currently booking through October because we are completely booked for September.
Yeah.
Next week we have Baby DM with us. She is Skyping in at 3 a.m. So come back and watch her. Give her the respect she deserves. She's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. You can follow us on Twitter at LR Terrain. You can follow us on Instagram at Legendary Realms Games. You can follow us or become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com/theweeklyword.
So before we go further, I'd like to point out that none of you have gone there yet.
Nope.
All right? It's $1. $1 to make Morgan happy.
It'll make
it
me
gives
so
her
happy.
a bottle of water for each one of these
Oh my
episodes.
God! And my cup is empty. I need it.
I mean,
Quench
I
my
pick up
thirst.
iced tea. I'm not even asking for that. We just need her water. I am Rich Parla.
I'm Morgan West.
Brett,
I'm Brett.
thank you for joining us.
Take care.
Have a good night, everybody.
Until next week.
Until next week. We love you all.
Mm-hmm.
And may you have everything you want.